Well, yesterday I was in the hot seat as the general manager of the Angels, and today Mike Manassian is going to jump into the hot seat and he's going to share what his offseason moves would be. So let's get into it. You're locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, I got to say this in my GM voice. Thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Of course, we're free and available on all platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you're listening, we would really appreciate if you gave us a rate and a review. Helps others to find the pod, and this organization really could use your support. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops.
Well done. Well done. That was the warm-up. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining us for this edition of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every single day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my GM brother, Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother, John.
Well, yesterday was really exciting for me because I got to share my off-season moves. And as a fan of this team for a very long time, we have seen them disappoint us most off seasons.
Yes.
We had a good run there for a while where it was like, hey, we got the big free agent, and we all know how that worked out. Right. And so it's fun to take it into our own hands and share our opinions. I got to do that yesterday. Michael, it's time for you to hop in to the GM hot seat and share with us the off-season moves that you would make this season.
All right, Johnny, I'm gonna run with the same theory that you ran with yesterday, and that is that the Angels are probably not going to spend more than they've already spent, meaning that I think $200 million is probably going to be the ceiling for this team. I know that the luxury tax is $233 or $235, something like that.
33.
And so I'm going to go to about $200 million, and I'll tell you, this is hard because I had two things working against me. One, I have the ceiling, I have the lid of about $50 million to spend.
Yeah.
And I can't go over that. But two, I made sure that I didn't select any players that you selected because I didn't want a repetitive show, right?
Yeah, that's impressive.
You and I think a lot alike. And so for clarity, I love Doc Peterson in left field, and so do you. I love Brandon Nimmo in left field, and so do you. But I felt like it was important to think out of the box here. It was important to not repeat what you did. And so I would love your thoughts. I would love your grades. And for those Angel fans listening that love it, you're welcome. For those that listening and you hate what I picked, just remember that I didn't want to select what John selected. So be gentle. All right. So again, my payroll
first dibs. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm a servant. And so my payroll lid is about $200 million.
Okay.
Because remember, we have those huge numbers with Trout and Ohtani and Rendon, and then all the ARB numbers.
Yeah.
So Johnny, I'm going to make a move this off season, and I'm going to get a left fielder because that's what we need. And not being repetitive, I've decided to sign J.D. Martinez, who played with the Boston Red Sox and also played with the Detroit Tigers. This guy had a career, and he still, I think, has a few good years left. So, Johnny, I'm going to sign him to a 2-year, $30 million deal. I think that's actually going to help me get him.
So about $15 million each.
Yes, here's why. So first of all, his market value, according to SpotTrack.com, which is a great website if you haven't checked it out yet, I'm going to give him about $15 million a year. Now, here's the issue. I realized that he played DH all last season, but a piece of that was because the Red Sox had a really good outfield, and you didn't need JD to play in the outfield. But if you look at his career, he's actually played left and right field pretty consistently. He played 70 games in the outfield in 2021, and he had a .980 fielding percentage with 3 defensive runs saved. So the guy actually has a pretty great glove in the outfield. And I like this move for a few reasons. One, it gives Joe Adell a chance to be the 4th outfielder. And I think that it allows Joe to rotate in and out, to give Trout a day off, to give Ward a day off. And I think you're going to need to give Martinez a few days off as well. And so I think Joe is going to get some at-bats here, and I think it's going to allow him to develop. but we're not relying upon him. Who we're relying upon is somebody who has been in the World Series and won, somebody who has hit 45 home runs in a single season at one point, somebody who's knocked in over 120 runs. I really like his bat. And here's the second reason why I'm going with JD. He gives the Halos a really good bat to all fields. Now, remember, there's no shift. There's no shift next year. So these numbers are only going to improve. 56% of his hits went to center field, 19 were pulled, and 24% he went to the oppo field. He went to right field because he's a right-handed batter. I love that because we need a contact hitter. We need somebody that's going to make contact, get hits, or at least move runners over. I would slot JD about maybe 5th or 6th in the lineup, but I also think that you can move him around to anywhere you would want him to be. Perhaps he is the cleanup hitter and you go Ward, Trout, Ohtani, and JD, then Rendon and Walsh. I mean, you're stretching this lineup out incredibly well. Johnny has a really great eye at the plate. He had a .340 on base percentage. Wow. He gives the Angels a little more pop. He had a .790 OPS, 43 doubles last year, and 16 home runs. So you can see that his slugging is still there because he is able to find gaps. Again, going back to his percentage of hits that went to center and how many he pulled and how many he went to the opposite field. And so I really like this bat. Here's the biggest reason why I like JD Martinez. He is clutch, and he has come through in clutch moments. And if there was anything that the Angels needed in 2022, it was some clutch hitting. It was a guy at second base, and it was the bottom of the lineup, and we needed a run, and we never came through in those moments. We've shared kind of ad nauseum on this podcast of the OPS of 4 through 9 and how the Halos were terrible. And so I think that this guy actually upgrades us in a really dramatic and specific way, extraordinary way, in my opinion. And when you talk about what he can do in left field, again, you have Joe Adell that can come in and fill in if necessary. And then you also can have him play right field if necessary, if you want to have Joe Adell start. Now, I know that you actually started with Brandon Drury and you said, I'm going to handle and solve the depth issue. Here's how I'm solving it. I'm only going to sign JD Martinez, but I'm actually going to have Livan Soto on my opening day roster.
Okay.
And David Fletcher is going to be my shortstop. Luis Rengifo is going to be my second baseman. And Soto, I would anticipate, is going to be they're going to be like a triangle. You're not going to know who's starting in what game because you're not going to be stuck in that. And I'm going to keep Squid because I want him up there for defensive purposes.
Got a good glove, yeah.
And I think that this actually really helps our depth issue in the infield. So I'm signing JD Martinez, and I actually went a step further. I'm going to do him for 2 years, $30 million, $15 million a year. That's his market value. I think he really brings an upgrade to our lineup. I think he brings a wisdom on how to get to the playoffs. I think he's a clutch hitter, and I think he would have a really great season in Anaheim. We've got that huge, deep pocket in right field. We've got that long area in left field, and I think that this guy is going to find those gaps, and he's going to really, really be a consistent hitter for us in 2023. What are your thoughts?
I actually think this is a great approach, and it really is an interesting idea to bring him to play in the outfield and especially kind of have that power bat in the middle of the lineup. Is age a concern to you? He is 35. I know that I signed Jose Abreu at 36 for a year. Yeah. So is this a concern at all to you?
It would be a concern in only him being in left field or in right field for every day. And that's why I really am excited about having Joe Adell. I think it gives Joe clarity as to what role he's going to play. And then I can give JD a couple of days off a week and have Joe Adell get some consistent at bats. So I'm going to manage this really well. I'm going to trust Phil Nevin. I'm not going to call down to the dugout and tell him what to do. I'm going to let him actually manage this. But I think that would be my only concern with him. I don't think that it's going to be a factor with his eye at the plate. I think the age factor would be just how many games could I get out of him. But if you look at how many games he's played over the last few years, he's really been in the 130, 140 range, and he hasn't really missed too many games. So I'm not as concerned as the number, the age number would maybe cause you to be concerned. I think he's actually going to be great for us.
Yeah, I really like that you signed up for 2 years at 15 million each. And the hardest thing I think about this process is this is mostly about what we would want to bring to the table for the Angels. And
yeah,
I didn't really take into consideration, other teams pursuing and where this player wants to play, that kind of thing, and being competitive in terms of signing them. So what you did here out of the gate was you made it competitive by giving him 2 years, 30 million. So I think you did a really good job here on this one. And where did you say you would factor him into the lineup again?
I would put him in either at cleanup, and I think then Rendon's 5th and Walsh is 6th, or I could put him at 6th and have Rendon back cleanup, then go Walsh, and then go JD Martinez. I think that you can have a lot of flexibility with him in the lineup. And one note on the 2 years, that really is my contingency plan. If I can't re-sign Shohei, then next year, JD's my DH. I already have him slotted in for designated hitter, and then I can put him in left field and have Trout DH on days where I need to get Trout off his feet. So it's almost a contingency plan as well if Shohei doesn't re-sign. But he already talked to me. He said he's re-signing, so we're all good.
Look at look at you with the foresight and the forethought there. I love it. I love it. Well done.
Futurist.
Well done. Well, coming up on Locked On Angels, we need pitching, and we need some more pitching. And who's going to slide into Mike's starting rotation? We'll take a look at that here in just a second. But first, Locked On Angels is brought to you by Roan, Michael.
John, as I build my team, I really want to look good and feel good while I build this really good team. And so this is why I need Roan in my GM life, because
indeed,
Roan is a men's clothing line that will help me to look good and feel good and will do the same for you. Roan fits each man perfectly. You're never uncomfortable. It's never tight. They always have your shirt size. And with Roan's commuter shirt, it's the most comfortable, breathable, flexible shirt known to man. And here's why Roan is so comfortable. They have a 4-way stretch fabric that provides breathability and flexibility, and it leaves you room to enjoy what life throws at you. So as I'm commuting to Anaheim Stadium, or I'm out golfing trying to convince Shohei to re-sign with us, I know that Roan's got my back and my front. And with Roan, looking good is easy. They've got the wrinkle-free release technology. You stretch it and those wrinkles go away as you wear the shirt. And Johnny, they got Gold Fusion, which is an anti-odor technology. So you're going to be smelling so fresh and so clean all day long. Listen, when you're the GM of the Angels, you can get a little bit sweaty because the pressure's on. And so with Roan, I'm thankful that I'm not going to, if I'm sweaty, I'm not going to stink. So that's a really great thing. You can't have a GM that smells. That's terrible, right? Plus, Roan is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether, because I know I'm going to be putting in some hours at Angel Stadium. So head to roan.com/lockedon and use our promo code LOCKEDON to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order at RHONE.com/lockedon. Again, use our promo code Locked On. You can upgrade your closet today with Roan. Use our promo code Locked On. Save 20% at roan.com/lockedon.
We want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. For your second listen today, you got to check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, you can go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with Locked On local experts and insights that only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today is available on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Johnny, I want to talk about my starting rotation, but just for clarity, why don't you take us back to yesterday to let the listeners know who it is that you selected, and then I'll share who I have selected to upgrade our starting pitching.
Yeah, yesterday, my starting rotation, the additions that I made consisted of Tyler Anderson, who we know had a breakout season with the Dodgers, and then Michael Wacha, who had a very under-the-radar season with the Red Sox. And Tyler Anderson was kind of the biggest splash, I think, besides Brandon Nimmo that I made. It's really hard to stay within the budget constraints. So I am looking forward to seeing how you're going to pull this off and improve our rotation in 2023. Now, considering we have Shohei Ohtani, Patrick Sandoval, Reed Detmers, Jose Suarez, there's probably one starter and probably 2 that we need to add if they decide to go with that 6-man rotation this season.
Yeah.
So, Michael, why don't you hit us with the signings that you made for the starting rotation?
All right, so I'm going to go first with the smaller signing, and it's one that you would have signed, and you mentioned that you would have signed too. So I'm going to start with Michael Lorenzen.
Okay,
I really think that
Biceps.
Lorenzen, right? I think he's got to come back, and I think that what we saw from him this last season is somebody who, when he's healthy, he's really good. Mm-hmm. And I think that he's going to eat up innings for us. And so I'm going to give Michael 2 years, $14 million, so $7 million a year.
Look at you.
And that's market value. And I think that it actually gives him a high five to, yes, we really believe in you. And again, something that our friend Andrew from Angels Top Plays has said, Michael can slot into the bullpen if he doesn't actually do really well in the starting rotation. I also anticipate when we get to the playoffs, I said when we get to the playoffs, I think Lorenzen can be the guy like Noah Syndergaard was for the Phillies. He can come in the 4th, 5th, 6th innings and stretch it out. And so that's why I really like him. And I think a full season with Michael, we're going to be really impressed with him. So that's a repetitive signing that you mentioned on our show yesterday that you would sign.
It wasn't one of my official signings, but it was as a backup. It was like, I bring him back if my payroll is too high, because I think he would be a very affordable option. And he's somebody that I would like to see back, because even though he got hurt, I mean, he was just a gamer and he showed that he cared. And when he was on, he was really on. And I think
he was
in the same way that you give somebody like Noah Syndergaard a year to kind of figure things out after coming back from Tommy John. I think with Michael Lorenzen, you got to give him time to figure out how to be a starter. And right out of the gate, he went 7, 8, 9. You know what I mean? Like 7 innings, 8 innings. He gave some longevity to the rotation, and it's unfortunate that injury happened. So I would love to see him back again. I like that you made that signing. Who else you got for the starting rotation?
Here's the big splash, Johnny. This is my Ian Anderson sort of splash, right? Like, was it Ian Anderson or
Tyler Anderson?
Tyler Anderson. There's so many different names in baseball, right? I'm going to say the Tyler Anderson signing that you made. This is my big splash. Jamison Tyone from the New York Yankees. I'm going to sign him to a 3-year, $43 million deal. So that's 14 to 14 and a half. That's his market value.
Yeah.
And here's what I like about him. He's coming off 2 consecutive years of 140 innings pitched. He was 14-5 with a 3.91 ERA. Now, don't be deceived by that ERA. I know it looks a bit high. For us, it probably is really good. Good.
As an Angel fan, I'm not deceived.
here's why I like him. He, 1, has playoff experience.
Yeah.
But 2, he pitched in the wind tunnel that is Yankee Stadium.
Right.
And you're a right-handed batter. All you got to do is just flick your wrists, and you're going to get a home run to right field. And so that's where Tyone was playing. Now he's going to pitch mainly at night in Anaheim, where the air is thick, right? That marine layer can come in. And this stadium is more designed.
The air is thick, it's smelling right, and it says to the left, and he says to the right. I had to do it.
Yeah. So this is good because our stadium is more designed for pitching anyway. And Tyone is the type of pitcher that will really thrive there. Here's another reason why I like him and went with 3 years. He's only 31. And so when he starts the season, he'll actually be 31 years old. I think he's hitting his prime. I think he's a really good starter. He was so good against us last year. And I think Jameson Tyone is going to be the guy that follows up Shohei Ohtani in our starting rotation. And really will be a good 1-2 punch for my Halos team this next season. What do you think?
So give me your full starting rotation in that sense.
I'm going to go with Shohei. I'm going to go with Tyone at number 2. Number 3 is going to be Reed Detmers. Number 4 is going to be Patrick Sandoval. 5 is going to be Michael Lorenzen. And 6 will be Jose Suarez.
I like that. I like the fact that you put Reed at 3 and Sandoval at 4. You've got back-to-back lefties there. Is Tyone a righty or lefty?
He's a righty.
He's a righty. Okay, so you'd go 2 righties, 2 lefties. And then Lorenzen's a righty, Suarez a lefty. So we have a good mix here of handedness in the starting rotation.
Yeah.
And man, think about that for a second. When you come to Patrick Sandoval as the 4th starter, that's a deep rotation, and that's a challenging rotation. If you're starting a series and, it's coming back around to the front of the rotation, it's a 4-game set, you got to face Shohei, Taillon, Reed Detmers, and Patrick Sandoval. Man,
yeah,
I like the challenge that the starting rotation offers in this situation. This is really good. I appreciate the Taillon signing and the Michael Lorenzen signing. I almost feel like this is a pretty realistic deal, Mike. The 3-year, $43 million.
Yeah.
And you did pretty good at not going over budget like I did.
It's hard, man. And that's the hard part. I really went to the, the budget communicator. I even looked at trade potentials on MLB trade, the trade board website, because I thought maybe there would be some moves I could make to maybe save some money. So I went in depth. So that's a whole other episode where we can talk about trades. But I think Taillon is going to be, he could be a really good potential for us, in real world time, like Perry Minasian time. But for my team, I would sign him. And I think a 3-year, $43 million deal would be very competitive and would be very attractive.
All right, Mike, we have to talk about the one thing that needs to be addressed. And so far it hasn't been addressed, but I'm going to trust that you will address it. We got to talk about the bullpen. Did you have a solution for this Angels bullpen? We have lots of bodies, lots of people. Of course, I shared my bullpen piece, which was closing with Rafael Montero, who is currently with the Astros. He's very familiar with AL West because he's been with Seattle before. So I think that he's somebody who could benefit the back of our bullpen. But what did you do to help this bullpen out? I really hope you have an answer for me.
I do have an answer for you. I like the Montero signing, by the way. I think that was brilliant on your end. And so I wanted to do something that could be brilliant on my end. And here's kind of my motivation behind it. I am sick and tired of getting to those late innings and not being confident that the door is going to be closed. And I loved having Rysell there. Now I know that we weren't really into fighting for the division later in the season, and especially in 2021, but early on, I loved having Rysell in as closer because you knew that the door is going to be closed and that everybody is going to play their role. And with the rise of Jimmy Herget, and with the rise of some of the other guys like Andrew Wantz and some of those guys, I really like where this bullpen can go. We also have Loop and Tepera that are still in the mix. So, Johnny, I wanted to make a big splash here, and this is going to be probably my most costly move. And it might be my most questioned move because we did trade away Rysell and got rid of that contract. And so this might be a repetitive decision because I'm bringing a heavy contract back. But I'm going to sign Edwin Diaz, and I'm going to give him 4 years, $64 million. That's $16 million a year.
Oh, and so that's exactly Rysell's number then.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm really kind of just replacing that pitcher. And I'm doing that because, again, I'm tired of not having somebody at the back of that bullpen that can really close the door. And I want to get Shohei wins. I want to get my guys wins. I don't think Patrick Sandoval needs to go 5-8 or 5-9. Like this guy – This guy needs to switch. And I think a part of that is getting a good bullpen behind him. What Edwin Diaz does is he brings in a guy who has done a couple of things. One, he's led the league in saves before. Two, he's been in the playoffs before. And 3, he's played in the AL West before, and he's had great success. And so I think that bringing him back into the Angels mix, he's going to know the teams that he's facing. He's going to know what his role is. He's been in New York, so he's felt the pressure. Coming to Anaheim is going to be like moving to Mayberry because it's going to be so easy for him to just exist in there, right? And he's going to be a hero because he's going to be somebody that's going to get Shohei wins, and he's going to help get Mike Trout to the playoffs. Now, I'm gonna bolster my bullpen by bringing up 2 specific guys. I think Chris Rodriguez, if he's healthy, he's in my bullpen.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give Ben Joyce a shot at being somebody that can be at the end of my bullpen simply because he's somebody that throws a lot of heat. And I want that in there. And so I'm gonna slot those 2 guys in there as well. And if Tepera and Loop don't turn out for me, then I'm quickly moving to Austin Warren and Andrew Wantz and Ben Joyce and Chris Rodriguez. I'm not messing around with this anymore because I want to make sure that our starters get their wins, that our team actually gets to the playoffs, and that Edwin Diaz shuts the door and we find ourselves with some great success in 2023. What do you think?
I love it. Let me give you a scenario here. I'll let you think this for a second. Jose Suarez comes in. He's starting the game. He's struggling the second time through the order. It's the 4th inning. He finally gets through the 4th. who's your 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning guys? What order would you put your bullpen in?
Yeah, that's great. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Jaime Barria in the role that he played last season. I think he's really strong there. And so I'm going to have Jaime be the guy that can help stretch me, go a couple of innings. I'm going to use Jimmy Herget in some of those innings as well. And I think that I'm going to rely on Tepera and Loop to return to form. And so I'm looking at Barria kind of stretching me. And then when I go 6, 7, 8, I'm going to go Herget, Loop, Tepera, not always in that order, but those are the 3 that I'm going to start with. And if they fail me, then I'm going to use Wentz and I'm going to use Warren in those rotation roles, those bullpen roles moving forward.
Where do you see Chris Rodriguez at?
I think if Chris is healthy, I think that he can be somebody that comes in 6th or 7th inning and just throws his gas with that awkward kind of, he's almost like a second version of Herget with the way that he pitches, right? He's kind of got that deceptive throwing arm. And so I'm going to put him in 6th inning, 7th inning. Okay.
And final question for me, does the trumpet player come with Edwin Diaz? Did you sign him?
If that incentivizes it, then yes, I'm bringing him in. And then what I'm going to have him do is I'm going to get my money's worth. He's going to play at the 7th inning stretch so that we're not playing the stupid Buttercup song or any other song that they put on. And then I'm also going to have him play when Edwin Diaz comes in the 9th inning. And I'm expecting him to play a whole lot because we're going to have a lot of leads with this team that I've built.
We're going to have Ipe and the trumpet guy on the same team. This is fantastic. See, the Angels need more. They don't have a mascot. They have Ipe, and then they could have the trumpet player. That's
the trumpet guy. Yes.
So, Mike, give me your final numbers on your payroll here. Let us know how you did.
All right. So I spent about $52 million here.
Okay.
So I'm $2 million over my self-imposed cap of $200 million for the season. So I'm at $202 million. Now, there's room to be flexible there. I can move some other pieces, but I'm also under the luxury tax, which is great. I think I have room to maybe sign one more player. I think I can get somebody maybe for $8 million, whether it be a bullpen piece or maybe I go and get like a Brandon Drury or something like that. I've given myself enough room where I'm not going to break the bank with these signings. And it also will be, I think, intentional signings and really be specific to the needs of our team.
I like it. All right. Are you ready for my grade?
I'm ready for your grade. Give me.
I know that you gave this to me yesterday, but I'm going to give you the same thing. I'm going to give you a B+ because I liked the way that you addressed the starting rotation. A B+ player, just like Brian Danielson, right? No, that was Daniel Bryan. That's a whole different guy. Sorry for the wrestling reference, nerds. All right. And so I'm giving you a B+ because I like the way that you addressed the offense. We certainly needed that coming into the season. I think JD Martinez adds a lot to that. I think Edwin Diaz is a lockdown closer. I love the Jameson Taillon signing, and having him behind Shohei would be fantastic. The one thing that I'm concerned with is I understand the depth in terms of the infield in regard to Fletch and Soto and Rengifo and Squid. And so I think what keeps it from being an A for me is relying on what we already have as opposed to making a very obvious jump there, right?
Sure.
But like you said, you still have some room in the payroll to probably add somebody to second base or shortstop. I've been thinking about this, and even after my GM episode, I was like, wouldn't it be cool to have Gene Segura back? I think that'd be a lot of fun to have him come back and play for us.
Now, I actually wrestled with that a little bit.
Did you?
Gene has actually got a player option or a team option. I'm not sure exactly. I'd have to check.
Got it.
He's not unrestricted free agent. That's why I actually didn't talk about him.
Okay.
But he was, when I'm going through on Sport Track, go there, by the way, if you haven't been, go to Sport Track because it listed Spot Track, sorry. And it listed him, and I thought maybe I could sneak him in and get a good deal with him because I would love to have Gene back. He would have been my guy that would have helped with depth. But again, he was not an unrestricted free agent. He still has like a club option or a player option. I'm not sure exactly what it was. So he wasn't a guaranteed signing for us.
Got it. That's good to know. Well, I think you did well, my friend. That's my final grade, B+. But let us know what you think in the comments on YouTube, or get at us at Locked On Angels on Twitter, or at Super Halo Bros.
Well, thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. Now, for your next listen, check out our friends at the Locked On Sports Today podcast. They share some of the biggest stories from the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and their take of the day. They're available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We really appreciate you tuning in today, and we hope that you'll reach out to us at Locked On Angels and share your grades of Mike's GM off-season, my off-season. We'd love to hear from you and share your opinions. You can also reach us at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Michael, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Can Shohei Ohtani get better? That seems like a stupid question, right? Can he get better? And the answer is, well, he thinks so. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and where he can get better tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
That's going to be a great conversation. We hope that you'll join us for that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Angels, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.